Pearl Diver's Punch and the later updated version, the Pearl Diver, were two of Don the Beachcomber's infamous cocktails, mainly because of two unique factors around the drink: its iconic glassware and its secret ingredient, Don's Gardenia mix. The drink was created in 1937 and updated later in 1950. It's another one of the recipes unearthed by Jeff the Beach Bum Berry. The glassware was also a mystery, and we have to remember that at that time, Jeff Berry was writing these books, and it was the late 1990s and early 2000s. eBay was not what it is today, and these glasses were extremely hard to find. While the glasses are often attributed to Don the Beachcomber, I believe they were made by the Dunbar Glass Company, and this specific glass and pitcher set would be called the Aramis, made in the mid-1930s, which lines up with when Don would have used them and how so many others ended up with these glasses as well. If you want your own Pearl Diver glasses, you can find at least a few listings on eBay for $15 to $50, but more recently, Cocktail Kingdom as well as Whiskey have released their own new versions. Like all things Don, the drink and the glassware would inspire copycats. The Mai Kai served a deep sea diver in the same glassware, and when I purchased this set last year, I was made to believe they were from Tiki, but I think these were just out in the world in the 1940s and 1950s, and not specific to any restaurant. While the glassware is important and iconic, the real star of this drink is Don's Gardenia mix, and it is one of the most interesting tiki ingredients. Gardenia mix has no gardenia and is made from pimento dram, or allspice dram, vanilla syrup, cinnamon syrup, honey, and drumroll please, butter. And we'll be adding one small ingredient to this to make this the greatest possible version of the Pearl Diver. The mix is used in the Pearl Diver Punch from 1937, the updated Pearl Diver from 1950s, and in Don's Coffee Grog. A few years ago, I made my very first Pearl Diver following Don's recipes as outlined by Jeff Berry in Sippin' Safari. But if you make this drink, or just stop to think for 1 second about this drink, you'll recognize you'll be serving this sweet butter mixture in a cold iced cocktail. You'd quickly determine that no matter what you do, the butter will solidify. You can blend it, you can fine strain it, but whatever you do, that butter will solidify and it will form clumps. It still makes a fine drink, it's just not always ideal. So for about a year before I even started anything here on this YouTube channel, I had this in the back of my mind. How can we keep the butter liquid when it's cold? Maybe we could clarify it, but I don't know, it probably won't work. I've messed around with a lot of xanthan gum in the past in smoothies and coffee drinks, but I didn't see how that was gonna work. Then I was skipping through Dave Arnold's Liquid Intelligence, and one of the very first recipes that he features in this book is a cold buttered rum. And that's essentially what a Pearl Diver is. It's a cold buttered rum. Dave's recipe calls for 210S, which you can purchase from the Modernist Pantry. Sometimes it's even on Amazon. At the time when I first made this, I didn't have that, but Dave gives an alternative which you can use, which is 10% xanthan gum to 90% gum arabic. If you're looking online, gum arabic and acacia gum are the same thing, so you can swap those between each other. Now, technically, we're not even really adapting Dave's recipe. We're just taking that one ingredient and moving it to our Gardenia mix. And if we do that, we'll create a syrup that stays liquid when it's cold, even refrigerated, which means no clumps and no solidified butter in our Pearl Diver. Now, if you're someone who's worried about putting butter into your cocktail for calories or fat content, we're going to be using 3/4 of an ounce of our Gardenia mix, and our Gardenia mix is only about half butter. So for most people, it's probably about the equivalent of how much you're going to put on a piece of toast. It's probably not a drink you're going to have, 5 or 6 of, but 1 or 2, it's fine. The traditional Gardenia mix is 1 ounce of unsalted butter, 1 ounce of honey, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon simple syrup, half a teaspoon of vanilla syrup, and half a teaspoon of a pimento or an allspice dram. So if you just took all those ingredients together and you whisked them together or creamed them together, you would have yourself your Don's Gardenia mix. You could just take that mix right there and make yourself a traditional Pearl Diver. But for the 2.0 recipe, we're gonna double it because we need some extra volume in there to blend with. And we're gonna take just 1 gram of 210S. And then we'll have a syrup that does not solidify in a cold cocktail. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take 2 ounces of butter and we're going to melt it in the microwave. Mine is already melted. I'm gonna build this inside of a large mason jar. The jar is much larger than I need, but I'm able to put my immersion blender inside and kind of prevent it making a huge mess. And then we're gonna need 2 ounces of honey. And this is straight honey, it's not a watered down honey syrup. 2 teaspoons of a cinnamon simple syrup. I'm using Smuggler's Cove recipe. 1 teaspoon of vanilla simple syrup, also Smuggler's Cove recipe. It's a 2-to-1 simple syrup with 1 scraped vanilla bean. Now in your normal recipe, you would take 1 teaspoon of pimento dram or allspice dram and add it in now, but I'm actually gonna do that differently because the 210S is supposed to be hydrated with water, but instead of doing that, I wanna skip over that step so we're not adding more water and dilution to our mix. So I'm gonna double the amount of pimento dram we normally use because it's usually a pretty small amount. I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of pimento dram, and then I'm gonna add 1 gram of 210S to my bowl. It doesn't have to be exact. And my 1 gram of 210S came out to about 1/4 of a teaspoon plus 1/8 of a teaspoon. So if you don't have a precise kitchen scale at home, you can use just 1/4 of a teaspoon of 210S and 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I'm choosing this over Hamilton because I think Hamilton can kind of overpower things. Still a little bit clumpy, but I'm okay with that. We're gonna blend this and it will make it completely smooth. Now in this case, the best thing to use is an immersion blender. I'm not a big fan of expensive ones. This is, I think, 30 bucks. It's an Amazon Basics one. It's good, it's cheap. When it breaks, I won't care. And you could use a kitchen regular blender, but I think you'll have a problem with the volume. So you might need to increase the volume of this, just maybe double this recipe, but that's something you're gonna have to figure out if you're using a regular kitchen blender. And once you're done, you'll have this, which is Don's Gardenia Mix 2.0. It's a little thinner than normal because our butter's still warm, but this will thicken up and form a more dense syrup, and it could stay in the fridge. It's not gonna last forever. It will eventually mold, but you could definitely use this for a couple days, probably even a few weeks. This one is my test version that I made yesterday, and it is a lot thicker. This is coming straight from the fridge, so it's not gonna solidify in your drink. I have a feeling you could probably even put this in your freezer. I could probably keep this jar. And now to the cocktail. There are 2 versions of the Pearl Diver. There's a Pearl Diver Punch from 1937, which is 1 teaspoon of falernum, 3/4 ounces of fresh lime juice, 1 ounce of orange juice, 1/2 ounce of gold Jamaican rum, 3/4 ounce of an aged Demerara rum, and 1.5 ounces of a gold Puerto Rican rum with 3/4 ounce of Don's Gardenia Mix. Now the Pearl Diver from the 1950s is a streamlined version, and this one has 1 dash of Angostura bitters, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, 1/2 ounce of orange juice, 1/2 ounce of a Demerara rum, 1.5 ounces of a gold Puerto Rican rum, 1/2 ounce of Don's Gardenia Mix. Now for me, the 1937 recipe is more appealing, but look at both recipes and you should be able to decide what looks better to you. I like the idea of using more Gardenia Mix, that took us a while to make. It has falernum and it has more rum. Generally, I'd use John D. Taylor's falernum, but I find this drink can lack sweetness, so I'm gonna use my B.G. Reynolds falernum syrup. Now, if you don't have B.G. Reynolds falernum syrup, I wouldn't recommend running out and getting it. Just use whatever you have on hand. Now, you could totally shake this drink in your shaker tin. You could use a drink master, which would probably be best, or you could just use your immersion or stick blender that's already dirty if you want to avoid using or making more dishes. But when you are using an immersion blender, you want to be careful how much ice you put in because it is much more powerful than a drink master, and you're going to dilute your drink a lot faster with less ice. So I would probably use maybe just like 2 to 4 ounces of ice if I was using an immersion blender. So start by building this in your drink master tin with 1 teaspoon of falernum, 3/4 ounces of fresh lime juice, 1 ounce of orange juice, half an ounce of gold Jamaican rum. I'm using Hamilton here. 3/4 ounces of a Demerara rum, also using Hamilton. 1.5 ounces of a gold Puerto Rican rum. I'm using Bacardi for this one, which is one of Jeff Barry's favorites in the books. And 3/4 ounces of Don's Gardenia mix. I'm gonna add about 4 ounces of ice to my tin, and then I'm gonna blend this for 20 seconds. Garnish this with a banana leaf, a lime wheel, and a cherry. So let's try it. I think this version of it is better than the updated 1950 version. The rums that you use here are important. Using those Hamilton rums, you can really taste it. And while I typically don't like honey, the honey and the butter here, it's just a great combination. It adds this nice warmth and silky texture. Now, if you don't do the Gardenia mix, the 2.0 version, you're gonna have a drink that has clumps of butter in it. As you're drinking it, you're gonna taste those clumps of butter. It doesn't make a bad drink, it's just gonna be a little weird and a little bit different. And while the drink can be a pain in the ass to make, I think it makes a wonderful drink. And I think if you're a real tiki enthusiast, if you're really into Don the Beachcomber, you should definitely try making one of these at home. It's an interesting drink, it's a fun drink, it's a historically important drink because it kind of gave us the popularity of this glassware. So that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you've ever made your own pearl diver or pearl diver punch and how you liked it. Give the video a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and otherwise, see you on the next one.